Welcome to our new podcast series, You Ask, We Answer. Here we discuss your questions with ACCA experts to find the best solutions for you. My name is Isabel and I'm an Education Community Manager at ACCA, part of the team that provides student support. Today, I'm joined by James Wright. James is a University of Chichester Senior Lecturer and Learn Signal Tutor. He's an accounting and finance program leader supporting accountancy students from around the world through his free content on social media and as an FCCA member. He's going to be answering your questions today on the topic of getting back on track after an exam setback. So welcome, James. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Isabel. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what questions you have in store for me.
We have some great ones and they're from the students themselves. So we'll get started in just a second. But I just want to say to the students listening or watching this, if you've recently experienced a setback and you need help understanding what went wrong, you're not alone. Many students fail at least one exam and they go on to achieve membership. This is a temporary setback. It is not a permanent one. James is here to explain to you how you can pick yourself back up and make the necessary changes you need to pass your resit. So James, I do have some great questions which were submitted by students during our last Back on Track webinar, which we run for students who were unsuccessful in their previous exam. And I know you're going to have some brilliant advice, so let's just get into it now with our first question. And this is from Sandra from the UK. Sandra asked, to be honest, I'm thinking of giving up. How can I get my enthusiasm back? And I really wanted to start with this one, as I think you'll agree with me, James. It's important to emphasize straight away that failing an exam is not an indication of someone's abilities. It's absolutely possible to pass next time. However, an exam setback is understandably disappointing and it can be hard to regain the motivation. So James, over to you. What would you like to share with this student?
Well, thank you very much, Isabel. And Sandra, if you are watching this, I hope you've got back on the saddle again and looking forward to your next exam in 2025. But the first thing, and I know this myself because I failed 2 of my ACCA exams, that was Advanced Audit and Assurance and Advanced Taxation. And the first thing I had to do was reflect on my actual preparation for that exam and say, look, James, where did it go wrong from your opinion? And just have an honest conversation to yourself and saying, did you prepare enough? Did you do enough practice questions? Did you cover the topic of materials in enough depth on there? And then once I sort of reflected and understood that, look, James, you didn't answer 100 marks on the exam. You didn't particularly feel right on the day. You overworked yourself. You had balancing commitments with travel and family. I then had to say to myself, well, if I'm going to come back and go again and sit the exam and put myself through the whole preparation process, you've really got to understand what is your why for doing this. And mine was always, I wanted to be a qualified accountant. I wanted to know how businesses run and to set up my own in the future that would be successful. So you've got to pick out what your why is. Maybe it's your managers at work are qualified and you want to hit that next level and get that promotion, or maybe you're doing it for your family. Understanding that why is the reason, and I know this after coming in from work after a long day where you just go, it's so tempting to sit on that sofa or play on your phone or watch television, but having that why gets you focused, gets you sat down and gets you going, because it's those little marginal gains. It could be just after work, before work, a little half an hour session here and there. They accumulate up and can be the difference in getting you the 50 plus moving forward. So my main bit of advice is find out what your why is, put it into practice, and then use it as fuel to help you prepare for your next exam.
Thank you so much. I think it's really useful to hear from you because you have that personal experience. You know exactly how it feels. And, you've gone on to achieve so much afterwards. So, as you say, I hope Sandra's listening and finds the inspiration to persevere and finds her why. So, moving on to the next question. This is from Mohammed. He's also in the UK. So he asked, he said he failed APM with 39% and he didn't expect this mark. Any advice on how to prepare for the next attempt? So, James, how should a student who scored a low mark go about increasing their chances of passing in their resit?
Oh, okay, no, really good question again, Izzy, on there. I'm gonna arc back to when I did my advanced audit assurance, similar to APM. It's one of the option papers, and I got 35% on that. Okay, and you know, you can imagine opening up your phone to get your mark and going, "Oh my word, I am nowhere near on here." Again, let's take a step back, put it in perspective, and you go to yourself, the advanced optional papers like APM, like advanced audit assurance, like I failed, they are really, really, really tough exams. The pass rates hover for APM and advanced audit assurance about 40%, even lower on there. So for every 10 students who come to the exam, only 4 on average will pass. It's really, really tricky. So when I came back to doing the resit for it, I had to go back to basics on there, and I went through every single chapter one by one, because getting a 35 like I did, or a 39% like Mohammed did, you got to say to yourself, there are just gaps in my knowledge that I just need to make more robust on there, so that whatever they throw at me on the exam day, I've got the technical knowledge that I can apply it. And then I actually worked out a better schedule. Again, I reflected back on, why did I get 35%? Where did it go wrong? And thinking about it just whilst we're recording now, I went, oh, James, not enough question practice, not enough mock exams to time, not enough focus in your answers. The key bit when you're at the advanced level is being really specific in your answers, showing all your workings and linking back to the scenario. There's a step up on there, especially on the option papers, and that's the expectation and the level you've got to hit. So when I came back to do the resit, I had it going through my mind. I'm there going, James, you've not got time to waffle. You've got to get straight onto the point. And if you don't do that, it's going to end up in the same result on there. So really, to conclude, to help you out, Mohammed, on there, first of all, preparation. Go back to some of those key topic areas. And I'd also recommend looking at the examiner's report, because it will show you, they're available for free on the ACCA website, that it will take you through the areas where students particularly struggled on the exam sitting that you recently did. So that would be my first one, preparation. And then next one would be thinking ahead as to the examination you're going to be sitting, setting targets, one, to make sure you've done all the tuition, then for revision and practice questions, and then finally for the mock exams leading up to your exam day. That's what I'd recommend.
Thank you. I think it's coming across, there's a real importance to do that kind of honest self-reflection after a setback, you know, really think a bit and be honest about what went wrong. And if it's a low mark, sometimes, like you say, you just have to pause and take the time to really build that knowledge up. So moving on to another question that we got from a student, and this is Rehan from Sri Lanka. So Rehan said that my exam performance shows that I'm weak in sections A and B, and I didn't do section C. I'm going to resit. Please give me some tips on how to study again and how I can pass next time. And firstly, it is great to hear that this student has been using the My Exam Performance tool to help them identify the areas for improvement, because it's a really, really useful resource for applied skills students, and I definitely recommend using that. But James, this student didn't complete section C, so it sounds to me like time management might be an issue, and we know that this is something that many students struggle with. So what's your advice for this student and others who may also have a similar problem?
Yeah, great question again. Thank you very much, Rehan, and great to see you're using the new tool. And for a student who's maybe watching this and going, hang on, what's this exam review performance on there? If you log on to your My ACCA account, it will take you through your exam, which you've previously done, and it will show you how many minutes you spent on section A, B, and C, and breaks down the areas of the syllabus that you did particularly well on, or ones that you can improve on. In my eyes, an absolute must for any student who is resitting an ACCA exam on there. But when it comes down to balancing the different sections, again, I opt back to when I used to sit in the exam halls, there's so much pressure on because you've got so many things to think about, and then you've got the questions to read. Keep it simple on that. Let's take a 3-hour exam on there. I always say to myself and students who I help, I always used to do section A first on there, give or take about 40 minutes or so. Keep it simple. So 0 to 40 minutes, section A. And then would go to section C next, which would be 1 hour and 20 minutes. So that would be 2 hours in altogether. And then I would do section B last, which would be about 55 minutes, leaving 5 minutes at the end to go back to any flag questions, just to make sure that I've answered absolutely all of them. And what that did for me was really calm my nerves down on the exam day, because I could see the clock going and go, right, 22, move on from section A, then we move on to section C. It lowers that exam day anxiety, and it helps you that when you're doing your questions in preparation for your exam, you'd line up a section A bank that you'd go through, maybe on a Saturday morning when you're not at work or you've got a bit of free time, and you go to yourself, right, I'm going to actually do this section as if it was the real exam day, full focused, no mobile phone, no music, no distractions. And that is where it's the repetition. These are the things, if we're going real talk now, students do not like to do mock papers, practice questions, 2-time under exam conditions. But I can tell you now, and trust me on this, it is the main thing that improves your performance when it comes to the exam day. Every exam that I failed and then came back to pass, I did so many practice questions 2-time under exam conditions. And I can tell you now, I'll put it on record, I didn't want to do it after work or on a Saturday morning or on a Sunday when I've got a million other things I'd rather do. But when it came to the exam day, which was the difference that I got a 50, I got a 51 on a couple of my exams, and I go, it's just those little extra sessions, those little extra questions that make the difference, that could just pick up on a couple of bit of the key topic areas, and working on your exam technique under the time pressure. Or in simple terms, if you're only answering 80 marks out of a possible 100 to try and achieve a 50 plus, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. So to conclude, do as many practice questions 2-time. You're going to have to take the amount of minutes you've got on there, 180 give or take, for it, divided by the 100 marks, so roughly 1.8 minutes per mark. So apply that on there, Rihanna, and then you'll be perfectly fine when it comes to sitting your exam. You'll attempt 100 marks on the exam day and give yourself the best possible chance of passing.
Thank you, James. I mean, never has the phrase "practice makes perfect" ever been more relevant. So, yeah, I think you're so right.
Well, just to add on to that, you don't actually have to be perfect when it comes to the exam. It's all technique. If we're talking real stuff now, it's showing your workings. Imagine you're actually marking your own work. I used to look at some of my old question attempts and go, James, imagine a marker's got to go through that. They're trying to fish out where your figures have come from. Imagine you're marking it yourself and put that into practice and use the ACCA practice platform and the mark schemes to say which ones did I get and which ones did I miss out on.
Yep, you're completely correct. I'm glad you pulled me up on that, because you're right. Perfection, you're not searching for perfection, you're searching for the marks that are going to help you pass. So moving on to the next question. This comes from Amy from Singapore. She asked, what's going wrong with students who score 49%? What should my focus be on for the next exam session? And this is a really common question we get from students who have just narrowly missed passing, as obviously it's a little bit tricky in some cases to understand what went wrong. So James, what's your advice for this student? What do they need to do to just score those extra few marks needed to pass next time?
Yeah, another great question. Thank you, Amy, for posing it. 49, I think, will haunt many ACCA. The number 49 will haunt ACCA students throughout their career. But it's because the exams are very, very tricky. And that is the line. The standard is at the 50 mark. Now, if we, again, take a step back, think about it rationally, a 49% tells me that you've got technical knowledge in there. You might have actually, and sometimes you just got to throw your hands up and say, you know what, on the exam day, there was a really tricky question about maybe a technical article, or it just sort of threw me off, and that cost me 5 to 10 marks, something on those lines. Could be a factor on there. But the 49% demonstrates that you have the technical knowledge, and it could quite easily come down to things like exam technique on the day, little things that I remember failing some of my exams in the past, and looking back at some of my question practice that I'd done in the run up to it. And little things like analysing the requirement effectively goes such a long way. Or even just using the company name. I remember reviewing some of my answers and going, why have I written this company is called it or they on there? Little things like that. We're looking for the little marginal gains that are going to push you up and get those extra 1 or 2 marks per question. That's going to get you, what we want is to get you a comfortable pass on there. I used to work with a guy who we used to go to the exams, and he said, James, my mantra for every exam is aim for 100, achieve 50 on there. And I don't care what it is in the middle. Hey, I'm going to get that pass. And he had that positive attitude. And he is now an ACCA qualified member like myself. Just working out what are the fundamentals of an exam coming up. So if I was you, Amy, and let's take SBR, for example, on there. You've got to say to yourself, right, there are going to be ethics on the exam. There's going to be some group accounts on the exam. There's going to be some professional skills on there as well. All these sort of things, you've got to say to yourself, I expect it to come on the exam. I've put in the groundwork on these areas, and other things they could throw up, you know, linking to some of the technical areas and the syllabus, I could have a real good go at, because like in my previous attempt, I maybe have done 1 or 2 past papers, but now I've done 5, 6, 7, and I'm a lot more savvy on the computer-based platform. These are the little gains that are going to save you time on the exam day, help you pick up on more marks from an exam technique point of view, and just to thirdly, give yourself the best possible chance of passing.
Some more excellent advice. Thank you, James. I'm really enjoying our chat, but sadly we're starting to run out of time, and I only have one more question for you. Amir from Pakistan asked us about exam nerves. So he said, many students like me feel stressed and tense. I'm scared of the next exam. What do I do? And I think most students and us, you know, we're all familiar with the challenges of dealing with stress and nerves in these very hard, these difficult circumstances. So what can students do to combat exam fears, especially for those who feel it a little bit more because they're preparing for a resit?
Sorry, I'm here to hear about the sleepless nights on there, but I'm afraid to say I've been there myself, because first of all, you've got to sort of accept that this is a fact. You're going to have some nerves involved. The reason being is the hours, the resources, the effort, the energy that you've put into studying, preparing, and going about these exams, especially the fact that, like, I used to work full time, study in the evenings and on the weekends. So it took a real big toll on my life. You had to say no to things, missing out on events, feeling a bit down because you're there going, oh my word, I've got to balance all these sort of things. And my life was just planned out week by week around work, studying, and trying to fit in other things. So you're bound to have it on there that on the night of the exam, you're there going, I've put so much into this. Oh my word, I do not want to fail on there. But you've got to actually take a step back and say to yourself, right, in order to prepare for my ACCA exam that's coming up next, what have I got to have done the night up until the night before of the exam that I can look myself in the mirror and say, I've been through all the topic areas of the exam that I'm sitting. I've done the exam practice questions that I've had that have been made available to me through my provider or through ACCA. And then thirdly, you've done as many mock papers to time under exam conditions as you possibly can. Other things that you could link into that to enhance your chances of passing. Have you done your ethics and professional skills module? Another really good one. Have you read some of the free technical articles on the ACCA website? Another massive green tick. And lastly, if you want to know how not to fail your exam, read the examiner's report, again, all free on ACCA's website for your exam. And if you've done everything in that list that I've just told you, you can only look yourself in the mirror and say, yep, I'm going to be nervous. I put a lot of time and effort into this, but I could not have given any more whatsoever. And I'm just going to give it my best shot. I'm going to turn up on the exam day. And these are the things that really help me. It's if you fail to prepare, you've got to, unfortunately, prepare to fail. And so you've got to think to yourself, on the exam day, how can I make my life as easy as possible? How can I give myself the best possible chance of passing? And for me, it was everything such as just the basics of making sure I've got everything packed the night before, making sure that I know how I'm going to get to maybe the exam center, or if I'm doing it at home, how is it going to work? How am I going to actually fuel myself? So hopefully as best night's sleep as I can possibly get. Even the little things of making sure you're hydrated, making sure you've got the right nutrition in you as well. As all these little things will help your concentration. And then when it comes to the whistle going on the exam day, you know your time management, you know when you need to move from section to section, and you know the plan that if you actually have a plan in place, that is where you settle those nerves and say, right, 9 a.m. start, 9 to 9:40, I do section 8, then we move on from there. And it just flows as it goes through. There was one exam that I did at an assessment centre to help you lower these nerves, where I was just so focused on passing and just getting the job done. There was someone on the exam day who was there chatting away about the football going on that night and what they're having for dinner. I was there going, I can't deal with this. I've just got to focus in. So little things like that it was a bit of a cold day, I remember, and I was there in my t-shirt and I completely forgot about the actual cold. And I was there going, oh my word, where have the 3 hours gone on there? Thankfully, I passed that day, but the amount of preparation really calmed my nerves, and I was just laser focused to do my absolute best on there. So that would be my last bit of advice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your tips today, James. And it's so useful hearing your personal experiences, I think, because it just shows, students aren't alone in this. These are very common things to go through when you're doing exams. So thank you so much for sharing. Sadly, that is all the time that we have for today. And I do want to just say a big thank you to our fantastic guest, James, for joining us and sharing that advice. I've really enjoyed the conversation, but I hope that if you're listening or watching this and you're preparing to resit an exam, I hope that you feel inspired to persevere. And we wish you all the best of luck. Now, if you have any questions you want answered about any other part of your ACCA journey, email us at studentaccountant@accaglobal.com. And until next time, take care and goodbye.
Thank you very much.